Okay, quick disclaimer, we'll wait for people to get here. Welcome to my Sunday stream. Um, excuse me. Welcome to my new Saturday stream. It's a new slot, so we're not really up to date with the algorithm yet. But nonetheless, we're trying to appeal to a new time zone audience by adding Saturdays. Anyways, that being said, quick disclaimer, we'll wait for people to hear. I'm not a medical professional. Nothing I say is intended as health advice. Any major changes you make to your diet or any other aspect of your lifestyle is something you should check with a doctor with before enacting your own life. Furthermore, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing I say is a recommendation for investment. Thirdly, I'm a law-abiding citizen. Nothing I say is an admission of guilt. And lastly, but not leastly, all opinions are my own and are in no way, shape, or form a reflection of the opinions of YouTube, Google, or any other network you may be viewing this on in the future. That being said, thank you to the first few people here. Welcome. Sorry if I'm a little sweaty, you guys. I'm still adapting to the new climate. It's quite hot and humid here. But over and all, I like it. It was quite a trying and turbulent journey to get here. So that's what we're going to start off talking about today, and then after that we can talk about whatever you guys want. But that was fucking crazy. So welcome, Noi. Thank you. I'm always happy to see you and happy to have you here to mod for me. Who else have we got here so far? I see 3 people here. I'm assuming we'll end up with a few more in a moment. I just posted to Instagram or whatever that we're online. So we'll see who all shows up. But, well, let me tell you, I thought for a long time that I was maybe like just psyching myself out. I've been wanting to move here for a long time. I've been wanting to get the dog out of the country with me for a long time. And I always had some kind of like apprehension about it. I always thought that it was, too risky and this, that, and the other. But there was also part of me that thought like, oh, maybe you're overthinking it. It's not going to be that hard. It was so much harder than I expected. So anything you guys, first and foremost, anything you guys want to talk about, any questions you got before I dive into the moving to Costa Rica story with the dog? I don't want to just start yammering on while we're waiting for people to get here. Looks like we got a few people here. There's 14 people here now. Well, I guess I forgot to ask. How's my connection? How's my audio? How's my video? How's it all going? We're actually streaming via Starlink right now. So this is my first stream since I've been here in Costa Rica, so I haven't really tried it out in the country nor on this specific connection. Audio and video is good? Okay, cool. Welcome, Elevator. Welcome, Roberts. Or should I say, Rethink Loose. Anyways, I'm going to jump into the story. You guys, okay, so story goes like this. I'm going to back up a little bit farther because this is one of the crazier things that I've ever done. Juliana see me at the airport. Yeah, that was me off to Costa Rica. I moved in. Brave, good to see you. Okay, cool. We're starting to get a good group. So you guys, this is how it started. All right. So first, I had to go to LA. This is like a week before. I left or something, right? Not even a week. It was like 3 days or 4 days or something before I left. I flew to LA, right? Went to my storage unit. I had 2 storage units in LA, right? I needed to get paperwork. I had no clue where the paperwork was. I had to find the dog's papers, and I had to find all my contracts for my other work, right? And so I dug through my entire storage unit, right? After getting there, the first night I came in, I was like, oh, I got a night to myself. So I went to the beach, had an amazing day, meditated all day. I moved to Costa Rica brave, but it was just like, it was an arduous journey. Everything worked out all right, but it was just, this is like one of the craziest missions I ever did. So I fly to LA, right, from Miami, right? I rent a car. I decided to give myself one day in Santa Barbara. It's my favorite place in California. I wanted to go spend one day meditating before the journey. So I went to Santa Barbara, spent a full day, like 7-8 hours in meditation on the beach. It was absolutely beautiful, right? Next 2 nights, like, it was kind of like went downhill. I couldn't sleep. I was drinking too much coffee, and I had to I had to go find the paperwork in the storage. So I went to the storage, tore through my entire storage. By the time everything was out of my storage and I found all the paperwork that I needed, I was like, well, fuck. I might as well just put all this stuff into my other storage. So I took my entire 5x10 storage that was filled to the top with shelves and everything, and moved it all into the remaining space of my 10x15, right? Got the paperwork, came back to the airport, returned the car, paperwork, luggage, all that in hand, fly back to Miami, right? Upon flying back to Miami, we had movers coming for the apartment in Miami, right? We go take everything from Miami, move it all into storage in Fort Lauderdale, right? Okay, so then that's directly like the day after I got back. Then after moving all that stuff back, I came back to Miami, drove my car to Orlando to go drop it off at a friend's house in Orlando, flew back to Miami, rented another car, right? One big enough for all my extensive amounts of luggage, this giant dog crate, the dog, all that stuff, right? Drive to the airport, get to the airport several hours early, right? And I didn't check the paperwork. Oh, at some point I had to go to the vet and get Sam approved for his health check for the flight as well. So I never checked the paperwork. The vet thought that he was doing me a favor by not putting pit bull on the papers or bully on the papers and put bulldog mix on the papers. Well, bulldogs apparently can't fly on the airline that I was booked on, right? So the airline refused to take Sam. So after spending 5 hours at the airport, we finally got fully shut down, right? So we had to go to a friend's house about an hour away in Miami. They wouldn't let us rebook for 2 days for the dog on the flight, right? So I had to go spend 2 more days about an hour away, get all new vet paperwork, fly, not to mention that they messed up my original booking, and one of my luggages that I had added later, I didn't add it with the original ticket, wasn't showing up on my other thing, even though I had booked it. So they charged me $165 for that luggage, right? Another whole thing for the dog, it was $250. Then when I get to the gate on the second time around, they tell me that one of my luggages is too big on my hand luggage, so they charge me another $250 to gate check my bag at there, right? So right? Then, and by the way, this is Avianca Airlines. You know, I'm not, it was a funny thing because at some point I was like, when I realized how annoying that this airline was, I was like, I wonder if this is a rebrand of Viva Airlines, right? Because a long time ago I made this whole stream when I first started on YouTube about how Viva is like the scammiest of scams, right? Well, come to find out that it's not a rebrand, but they merged. Viva and Avianca merged together. So it's like it's like something weird about that. Anyways, I don't know what's up with the Colombian Airlines. Anyways, so finally get to um, Costa Rica with Sam, right? So we go uh, rent our car, pack up all of our luggage or whatever, and um, I fucking I follow the map, right? It was getting late, so we decided there's a ferry to get to this part of Costa Rica, right, that you're supposed to take. But I wasn't going to make it for the last ferry, or it was sold out or whatever, right? So I decided, okay, I'm just going to drive around the entire peninsula. And according to Google Maps, it was only an extra hour to drive rather than to take the ferry. So I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. So I drive around this peninsula, right? I'm following Google Maps. So as soon as we get around the bend of the peninsula, and by the way, you guys, I'll do greetings in a minute. Sorry, I don't want to stop the story because I'm trying to keep it all in order in my head. But welcome to everyone that just got here. So I'm driving, right? And we get around the peninsula. All of a sudden, like, the roads stop being paved and it turns into like all dirt roads, right? So I'm like, okay, it's Costa Rica. We're Costa Rican. Keep in mind, this is now it's like midnight, later, whatever. We're driving through pitch black jungle on dirt roads. It's like mountainous, like uphill, downhill, all this stuff. I had a not four-wheel drive, an all-wheel drive vehicle. So yes, I had an SUV. So wasn't totally screwed. So driving these dirt roads, right? And the initial quote from the airport was like 6 hours. It was going to be a 6-hour drive to my accommodation. So driving for approximately 5.5 hours through pitch black jungle on dirt roads through the mountains in a place I've never been before, right? So at some point we're driving through this dirt road and all of a sudden it like comes to water, like a river, right? No bridge, no nothing. It's just all of a sudden, boom, dead ends into water. I'm like, okay, well, this is not good. We've already driven for several hours now. I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, it doesn't look that deep. It looks like the road starts again on the other side. I wonder if I can just like drive across. So I back up a bit, I get some speed, and I just go smashing across the river, right? I make it across, made it across the river, right? So, okay, driving, more and more dirt roads. Now there's giant cows, like, I mean, the biggest cows you ever seen with horns and, you know, bull or, I don't know, steers, whatever they were. Giant cows, fucking all over the roads, like, totally insane, right? We come to another river. This one's a little deeper. I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I drive down the riverbank a little bit, it looks like it's a little more shallow over there. So I like do a little maneuvering. I get across the river again. So I'm like, I've done my second river crossing now through the jungle in the middle of the night. Country I've never been to. Okay, we're driving another hour, so whatever. And at this point, it's telling us, like, of our original 6-hour drive that was actually probably more like a 7-hour drive, it's telling me there's 45 minutes left. I'm almost there. And now we come to another river, but this one's like quite deep, and I'm like, ah, fuck, I don't know if we can make it across this one, but I'm not going to give up 45 minutes away from the house. So I pick up speed, boom, smashing across the river. I feel the tires slipping. I'm like, oh no, we're about to get stuck in the river. But we get across, right? So I'm so relieved. I'm like, okay, surely we're gonna make it now. 45 minutes to go. We drive down the road another maybe 5 minutes past the third river, and suddenly the road stops, or appears to stop. And I'm like, the road just dead ends here. And so I get out of the car, turn on the brights, go look, and it's a giant tree has fallen across the road. Such a big tree across the road that it looks like jungle itself had grown across the road, but it's really just the biggest tree you ever seen across the road, to where the tree on its side looks like trees going vertical, completely impassable, right? Keep in mind, this is after 6 hours of driving or whatever. So, okay. I'm on Google Maps, I'm trying to find an alternate route, whatever. There is no alternate route. So I'm like, okay. And then it won't even navigate me back to where I came from. It wants to keep trying to take me back that way. So I'm like, okay. So I just picked some random city that was kind of over by where we started, and I tried navigating to there. So get Google Maps to take us back there. So boom, okay, so now we're driving 5 hours back to the destination that was at the crossroads by the top of the peninsula, right? Finally get there, and it gets back onto pavement and all that, and I'm like, okay. So now I reroute back to the place again, and finally it picks up a route. So now it takes me another 5 hours all the way around the opposite side of the peninsula. So originally we were circumnavigating one side. Now it wants to circumnavigate the other, because we're way down at the tip of the peninsula. Pretty much it's equal distance both ways, right? So 7 hours that way, 5 hours back. Now it's 3 hours or something like that, back around the other way. And what's really frustrating is that once we get there and we start going around the other way, it's paved the entire way, which was nice that it was paved. I'm glad, I was thankful for the pavement. But Google Maps decided to take me, the first route that it took me was all dirt roads through the middle of the jungle, through rivers, without bridges, everything else. And the entire time, there was another route that was paved. It could have taken me that way. So, then that was just the first day. So 2 days go by, and I didn't want to, the rental cars are super expensive here. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to buy a car. So I'm searching on Facebook Marketplace. I find a car that I like. I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy this car. So I get the guy to agree to meet me halfway, which is at the same original ferry that I was supposed to take the first time. So I'm like, okay, the guy, we both head out, we're going to the ferry to go meet, and the ferry turns out to be sold out for the crossing that I needed to get there. So this is 2 days later. So I get to the ferry, can't get on the ferry, and end up having to drive back around the entire peninsula again. So this is a 4-hour drive to the opposite side of the ferry landing by car. So drive 4 hours, get there. It was a pretty rough area where the ferry landing is. So I'm over there, I got cash on me for this car. I'm I'm super paranoid, and I'm okay, it's cool. Divine protection, we're good. Make this happen. Everything goes through good with the sale, buy the car, right? So now I have to drive all the way back to San Jose Airport to go return the rental car. So 4 hours around the ferry, 3 more hours back to the thing. Well, I made the genius idea of, I forgot to turn off avoid tolls, because I had just came from Florida where there's tolls everywhere. Anyways, it took me on a crazy ass route back to San Jose from the ferry landing. It was all crazy mountains and all this So we had to drive this vehicle that we just purchased, that we're not used to, with a manual transmission up and down these super steep ass hills, like all through the mountainside, all the way back to San Jose. We get back to San Jose, return the car, and I decide, you know what, I'm just wanting this all to be over with, so I'm gonna go ahead and muscle through this, and I'm gonna drive all the way back, the 7-hour drive back to the, this bug, back to the, back to the house again. So I did a 14-hour drive that day to go get back with this vehicle back to where we're at. So all in all, it was a lot of driving, a lot of craziness. We got rejected on one flight. It was a turbulent voyage, but I'm officially in Costa Rica. I got my dog here. I got a vehicle, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place. So that's pretty much the whole story. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to do greetings. If you guys got any questions, comments, or want to talk about anything else other than my poor logistics and planning, I'm down to continue this conversation. But that was the story. It was insane. I'm still recovering at this moment, but I'm on day 3 of no coffee, and that's very good. So let's see. Tristan, welcome. Sharon, welcome. Let's see. Who else showed up? Dingo, welcome. Essence Wellbeing, good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for coming again. Brave said Dumb and Dumber Airlines. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Let's see. Sam Hyde, welcome. Yes, you can ask a question as long as it's appropriate for YouTube. Naoki says, how would you define spirituality? That's a good question. How would I define spirituality? I would define spirituality as the knowledge that you came here with nothing and that you will leave with nothing, other than your karma or the work that you do on your soul, for the people that don't believe in that. And so basically the knowledge that we are living an illusion, and that this is a I need to relight my incenses. I got mosquitoes getting me. But yeah, pretty much just to be in touch with the unseen. I suppose that is how I define spirituality. To be aware that there is more than the physical, mundane world. Naoki says, oh wait, Sam Hyde says, when you were a teen, did girls notice how big you are? Was it like running rumor around, or were you like a legend at your school? You know, I wasn't really aware of that at the time, but knowing now, not so much anything about myself, but knowing more about psychology and things, I can look back and see that there probably was some rumors. I definitely didn't have like a shortage of interest. And I mean, I don't know if I would say I was a legend. I guess you'd have to ask somebody who went to school with me, but I was quite like a notorious character for other reasons at my high school, but I don't know. But I didn't really figure it out until I was like probably 21. Naoki says, why Costa Rica? Well, it's a good question. I mean, I just wanted to be somewhere where I could immerse myself in nature. And there's quite a lot of it here. It's also fairly centrally located between North and South America, being in Central America and all. And seems to have a fairly spiritual reputation, or at least as a vacation spot for people that are interested in that kind of thing. So I thought maybe it would be a good place to network and make connections and things. But really it was mostly about the nature. I just wanted to, and also the blue zone thing. Here where I'm at is considered a blue zone because people live on average or like over 100 years here because the water's super clean. There's volcanic soil, so the produce and things are more, nutritious, so on and so forth. Like most of the stuff I grew right here on my property, not the cantaloupe, but the pineapples and there's a soursops growing here. We got a mango tree that just won't quit. It's quite interesting. The water's super clean and well mineralized. So it checked a lot of boxes. Plus, it allowed my dog, which is banned in a lot of countries. And when I initially booked the ticket, it had a little bit lesser requirements to import the dog, but they changed it like by the time I had to get my vet thing. So it was a little bit of a bait and switch in that regard, but all in all, it worked out. They gave me a 6-month visa out the gate, so it was it's working so far. Black says, it feels crazy watching bro on here because I've been a fan of yours for over a decade and you're the GOAT. Well, I'm happy to have you here. It shouldn't feel too weird because you were watching me elsewhere before, so it's not really that big of a switch, I don't think. Oh, yeah, I got this guava here. So yeah, it shouldn't be too... Oh, get out of there. No. I'm still gonna drink that. They say if bug falls in your drink, you just gotta dip it in all the way because the antidote on the other wing neutralizes it. Let me see. What else do we got here? No, it says, thank you so much for the donation, Noy. I appreciate that. Noy says, what an amazing and crazy journey. Yeah, it was honestly, it was a crazy journey. It was definitely one of the most trying things I've ever done. But you know what is interesting, because like, I mean, you know why I valued that? Like there's a saying, they say, if you think you're enlightened, go spend some time with your family, right? And, you know, when I first started my spiritual journey, like I felt that a lot because I'd go see my family and I would feel a little triggered. But as I integrated more and more and more, I would go see my family and I'd find that nothing really bothered me. And then I would see them again and I started noticing that, like, by holding my frequency and not being triggered by anything, that that they started changing and that they started kind of healing as well, right? And you know, then I decided, oh, I want to challenge myself even more. So I started becoming introspective, and I was like, where have I always struggled? And I was like, I've always struggled with relationships with women, right? So I entered into a relationship with a girl that basically checked every box for all my triggers, everything that would ever fucking trigger me, right? And I found that I was able to have love for somebody that I would have never in the past been able to have love for. But I was still triggered, right? So after going through the, heartbreak and all that of ending that whole thing, um, and finding a way to regain my balance after something that totally knocked me off of my horse of enlightenment, right? Um, I found a way to also build upon that and to become um, immune to that, right? And to be able to once again to hold my frequency in situations that I normally would have been triggered by or not, and uh, and and that would have upset my zen, right? But I never really thought about something like this, right? But thinking back on the way that I've always been in the past, like this would have something like this journey would have rocked me in the past. It would have like totally. I mean, I would have totally just. I mean, I would have been at very least in a bad mood. You know what I'm saying? I would have been upset. Something would have. I wouldn't have kept my cool at all. But through this entire thing, the airport, the dozens of hours of driving, the bait and switches and this and that and all the unexpected, you know what I'm saying? Like I never lost my cool for 1 second. Um, and though I do feel like my body took a toll, um, I feel that as like an observer. You know what I mean? Like I'm observing my body as like, okay, I've just spent the last 2 days just sleeping. Um, that's why I was like, now is the time to quit coffee because I'm like, I just need to regenerate, and I don't care if I go into like sleep mode for a week. So that's why I was like, yep, okay, no more coffee. I'm just gonna sleep until I recover. But I never lost my cool the whole time, and I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just saying, like, as an observer, it's interesting. And if nothing is, I don't know what anyone's motivation is um, for spirituality or self work, healing, and so on and so forth. I didn't personally have any reasons. It just kind of happened to me randomly and like by chance or whatever. Um, but I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for it because I just couldn't imagine I mean, I don't even think I could have even done anything like that before. I don't know if I could have even stayed awake that long and stayed cool and stayed calm and collected and just navigate everything that world threw at me. I probably would have, I don't know what I would have done. Like it just, you know, um, hell, I might not have even gotten on the plane the second time in the past. I don't know. It was so much. But I never lost my cool, and I'm really thankful for that. And I think that there's something to be said for the process. You know, people talk a lot about love and light and all these positive aspects of spirituality, but there's a dark side to it too, right? And like what the Hindu or the yogis or call, I think they call it tamas, right? And that's a big part of it, you know. And of course we all need some kind of motivation to like head down the trail and, you know, experiencing some beautiful love and light type situation is a great motivation. But if you want the real riches that come with it, not just the blissful highs, but like the ability to be an observer even in situations that can only be described as pure suffering, right? Then you really have to be willing to do the shadow work with the tamas, right? Or to know the dark side of yourself and of the simulation of this grand illusion, right? And it's very rewarding to know that you can stay level-headed and keep your cool in any situation. And it's honestly like possibly even the best part. I mean, it might not be the most enjoyable part, but it's definitely could be the most beneficial part because it's part of the whole thing, you know. Essence Wellbeing says, I'm day 5 on coffee too, feeling much better. That's amazing. That's awesome. Congratulations. She continued to say, what a crazy journey. Good to see you both arrive safe. Thank you so much. Term says, name the song that best describes your life. You know what? The song that best described my life? Well, historically, it used to always be Vacation by Dirty Heads, right? But then I found 2 songs that were so good. And they were by this, I don't even know if it's a band or if it's just like a producer called like Shift to Abundance. But like, for whatever reason, like I literally bought a subscription to Spotify after I said I would never buy Spotify again, just to listen to these 2 songs, right? And because I found them on Instagram, I had them on a post on Instagram. I was like, this is amazing. I want to listen to the whole thing. So found these 2 songs that were so good it was worth a subscription, right? And they just disappeared. Like they removed the audio from my posts on Instagram and they removed the songs from Spotify. I have no clue what happened. So I forgot the name of them, but one was called Out of the Matrix. I don't know what happened to the song. It just disappeared from the internet. And there was another one, I forgot what it was, but it was even a little bit better. But there was this song called Out of the Matrix by Shift to Abundance that I think would describe my life, if it's even possible to find it. You guys, one second. I'm gonna just go light an incense real quick. I got this like incense that like keeps the mosquitoes away, but I gotta go grab one. Just bear with me for one moment. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're back. Sorry about that little intermission, guys. I was about to get eaten up. Like, this is the only stuff that got to keep the kapal burning here. Okay, there we go. All right. So let's see. Noy says, "How do you find Costa Rica? As better or way much as expected or way better?" You know, um, pretty much as I expected. I haven't got to explore too much. Like I said, I spent the whole time so far just like getting here, looking for a car to buy. I finally went and had my first day at the beach yesterday. The beaches were beautiful. Honestly, okay, I will say that possibly the beach. Okay, so the beach that I went to was a little bit more crowded than I expected, but it's a really popular beach, so I'm not discouraged by that. But I went in the ocean, and the water is way better than I expected. It's so warm, and the waves are better than California. Um, I'll definitely be doing some surfing here. But yeah, there's nice, big, just perfect waves, and the water's like bath water, and the sand is super soft. So so far, that part definitely took me by surprise of how good it is. Um, the people are fairly friendly, and there's like, it also has taken me by surprise of like how much food there is like just growing everywhere. Like, it's like very abundant as far as like the fruits and stuff like that. So that part is interesting. Um, it's definitely not a cheap place. I mean, the accommodations are fairly inexpensive, but the food is like crazy expensive. So it's kind of cool that it's like growing everywhere. It's also interesting how, like, I mean, not all the roads are. I mean, the roads are not great. Like, they're all right. Some of them are all right. But it's like it takes you a long time to go like a fairly short distance. Like, it's very, yeah. It feels as much as it's a small country, it feels big because it takes a long time to go a short distance, and there's like so many different types of like land formations. Like, there's mountains, there's beaches, there's jungles. Um, there's a lot of different like types of nature and stuff going on, and there is. I mean, I knew there was gonna be a lot of animals and stuff, but there really is like a lot of animals. I mean, there's like everything. I mean, there's a lot of bugs, big ones, and I don't mind it. I like them. Tons, like really diverse with the birds, and there's iguanas, and there's armadillos, and let's see, what else have I seen? All kinds of like possum things, some things I never seen before. There's dogs everywhere. Um, I don't know. There's just kind of a lot of stuff. Bats. The other day, some bats came into my cabin and were like flying around my head, like eating bugs, like right in front of my face. Like, they weren't scared of me at all. I was like, wow. There's a lot of animals, which is what I came for. So it's cool. I thought it was amazing. Some people would have freaked out about the bats thing, but it wasn't an issue for me. Someone says, "Bro, don't you think you should be flipping or tripping?" I don't even know what that means, to be honest. Naoki says, "What a luxury to be in a clear environment. What have you learned about yourself that wouldn't have learned in another career?" About myself? Well, it's an interesting thing. Like, don't know if I would have learned it in another career. Maybe I would have, but you know, as I've integrated this whole spiritual process more and more and more, like, really, it's just like nothing really has like a pull over me. Like, I'm not influenced by money. I'm not influenced by sex. I'm not influenced by substances. Like, I don't like things, all the things that used to motivate me or bring me joy, like, they don't do anything for me anymore. Like, I don't get any kind of kick out of really anything. And that sounds kind of depressing and sad, but I mean, but the thing is that it's not, because like my mind is always on God, right? And that brings me like a stable, like, I don't know, a stable bliss, right? Like, I always feel good because I am always looking at everything as, you know, a gift from God. Even the hard times, even the trials and tribulations. It's like, okay, I'm being tested right now. God's testing me. I was like, I am thankful when something trying happens because I know I have God's attention, right? I'm like, and this is for lack of a better term because I don't really think of it as God in the sense of what most people think of it. You know, it's very hard to explain my version of God, but yeah, no matter what, whether something is good or something is hard, I just look at it as a gift or a lesson or a test, you know, and that just brings me, like, while I don't have the same highs, I don't have the lows either. It just brings me like a stable, you know, like contentment. And that contentment can sometimes be bliss as well when, like, basically like every morning when I wake up. Like, I feel so good when I'm just on that cusp of, like, even before bed, like on that cusp right before sleep or right before I wake, or right when I wake up, when I'm still like halfway dreaming and halfway awake, I feel almost like I'm on like some kind of like ecstasy or something, right? And, you know, at the lowest times, like what I've just encountered for the last few days, where it's just like fucking, you know, whatever, fucking gonna drive for 15 hours today, fucking, like, I'm just like, all right, it's a test and I'm not gonna fail. So, you know, I don't know if that would have been, you know, the thing is that nothing would be as it is if you change anything, right? So I wouldn't change anything about my life. Like, I wouldn't change my career. I wouldn't change the experiences I had there. I wouldn't change even the low points, like being in prison and all that stuff. Like, I wouldn't change nothing. I'm happy. Not even that happy. I'm just like, I don't really know how to explain it, but I'm grateful. That's the word. I'm just fucking grateful. No, it says, yes, that's true about the flies fact. That's good, that's good. Yeah, because what's the point or goal of meditation? The point and goal of meditation is to realize oneness. You know what I'm saying? To realize that you're not this body. You know what I'm saying? To realize that you're not separate from your brother, your sister, your mother, from the earth, from the animals, from the birds, from the bees, from the foods that you eat. You know what I'm saying? Like, that you're not separate from any of it. That everything is God, right? And that you're part of everything, which makes you something very, very Interesting. You know, and that's the goal of meditation, is to forget about the self, forget about the I, and just be part of everything, to feel everything as part of you, to realize the beauty of chaos, right? And from the fact that, you know, there is order, and that order only comes from chaos. You know what I'm saying? That's what this whole thing is. It's just order from chaos. And there's just a lot of cool stuff that we get to experience by doing this. Not just as individuals, but, you know, as like a living, conscious planet. And to appreciate the awareness that we have. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And he says, that's true inner peace. And that's good. Let's see. Austin Relent says, hi, hello. Donald Mont says, you've got a John the Baptist look, bro. Huh? I'll take it. John the Baptist is alright. Pure Vita indeed sounds relaxing. It does. Like, listen to, this is the other thing that I love. Okay, so this is the part that I love the most probably about it here. Because, see, I was just in Miami for the last few months. And, of course, like, I noticed there's also was, like, a Discord in LA and stuff. But it was, like, you know, like, the aggression and the anger so many people have of the traffic and this and the other. Right? But the thing about California that I noticed a long time ago, which was something that, like, made me really like Arizona, for example, is that because, and this is my own theory, I think it's like literally because there's so much agriculture in California that they have sprayed so much fucking pesticides and shit that they have killed all of the insect life. Like when I was a kid growing up, I remember like I loved playing with bugs. And I used to always hear crickets and there was insects everywhere, right? And then, like, for the last, like, 10 years or whatever, like, I don't remember ever seeing bugs in California. Like, there's none left. They're all dead. And it's because people spray these fucking pesticides everywhere. Like, they're overspraying the crops. They're spraying people's houses. They're just saturating everything in poison. And it's killed all of the, like, small things, right? And then I was in Miami for the last few months, and it's like there was like construction next to my building, you know, there's always like banging and grinding and concrete saws and all this shit and sirens and people fucking honking. And it's like it was such a beautiful place. I was right on the beach. We had the Caribbean blue waters. Like it was amazing, amazing place. But there was no peace. You know what I'm saying? All those just like super shallow people just only caring about, you know, their looks maxing and all whatever, just everywhere, and just noise, like artificial noise. It's just discord. And here, listen, I can hear like 5 different types of animals right now just like singing. All these different birds and cicadas and different stuff. And in the morning when the sun comes out, I'm going to hear roosters are going to be crowing and all this stuff. You know, I might drive down the creek, maybe there's some dogs barking. Like, it's a melody of life here, you know. And it's my favorite part so far, because it's just like, you can just sit there and just like immerse into the sound, you know, and you can realize like, it's like this noise sounds like a stable noise, like it's ongoing, it's whatever, but it's thousands of things contributing to it. It's a whole orchestra right now, and it's singing for us. It's beautiful. AD Mythic says, how would you describe your understanding of God? How would I describe that? So I think of God as, when I say God, you know, I don't think of the highest of the high, right? I think of that which created us, which we're part of, which is created the earth, and which is everything. But I also have realized that that too has a creator, which is beyond description, right? Which, the best description I can give it is the mother of all things, right? But to that, we're so small, you know, but there is something which loves us so intensely, which is experiencing every single thing that every single person and every single animal and every, you know, particle of the earth, everything is being experienced by a central consciousness, right? And that it loves every aspect of this whole thing, not just the good things. It loves even it loves it all, right? It loves duality. And we're part of that. And I don't know, it's always an interesting, it's like interesting, it's like, where do you draw the line? That's where I always think of, because, you know, there's something else, you know, that made that possible. But that thing is completely and totally beyond description. And so I can't give it a name. But I think of God as the consciousness which makes all this important and loved. It's hard to say. It's this kind of thing that can only really be experienced. And I think I see it as like ultimately, and in some way I suppose I'm doing the same thing, making the same mistake, but I see it as the mistake that every religion has made of trying to describe that, knowing that it can only be experienced. It's really hard to say. Naoki says, that sounds like pure freedom and true joy, not dependent on circumstances and not being enslaved to personal desires. But God is our exceeding joy. Psalm 43-4. Yeah, it does sound like that, doesn't it? Noise says, yes, grateful. Gigi says, Miami sucks, life allows, so anywhere but here is amazing. It's not, I mean, it's got some cool things. Naoki says, so consciousness is interconnected pantheism? I would say, yeah. I would say that, you know, when you say God, this is the problem with when we're talking about, like, it's hard to, it's really hard to, like, how do you really want to divide it up? Like, how high do you want to go? And no matter how high you go, you have to also realize that there will always be some level in which is beyond our comprehension or knowing, right? So it's really hard to define things like that. You know, God is so immense that God's very mood, to just have a mood, is in itself a God. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like some people think of like Jesus as an avatar of God, or Krishna as an avatar of God, or Buddha as, you know, this ultimate expression of this thing, right? And in some way, they're all right. And as much as it seems like, oh, okay, like this religion, how can every religion be right? And it's because it's all part of something greater that is beyond description. So while they're all right in their own perception of what was experienced at that time through that person, you know, it doesn't end there. No religion really encompasses the totality of what it all is, you know. And I think that like a pantheistic view does give us a better understanding of it than to just say, oh, there's only one, right? Because even if all the gods are part of a single consciousness, a single God, that is also part of something, right? And so it's literally all beyond words. Like, words are like the most limiting thing on the entire planet. It's literally the most frustrating invention of man, right? Is language. And people can debate and debate and debate this and that and the other, but the truth can only be experienced, right? And to try and say that it's all one God is an oversimplification, because there's something which is so immense that it's like, imagine, you know, I've said this before, but like imagine that in the same way that your body has trillions of cells, right? God is made up of an equally infinite amount of universes, right? To where like a single cell of the bodies of God, for lack of a better analogy, is like an entire universe. And an entire universe is like the God described in any religion, right? So you could think of the universe as God, right? As all things within the universe as God, right? This is the God that matters to you, that you're a part of, right? Like the sun that gives this entire system life is like a mitochondria within this cell, right? And this cell is God to you. This is the God that's described in all the religions and so on and so forth. This universe, right? It's completely conscious, and like all the planets and stars and cosmos and all that is all parts of it, right? They're all conscious. But that's just one cell. And in the same way that like your cells are dying and being reborn and dividing and all this stuff, like who knows how many times every day, it's the same thing is happening on another scale, on this cosmic scale, with you. Whole entire universes are being born and collapsing every day, right? But what is a day to God, right? It's an inconceivable amount of time, because time doesn't exist there, right? So to try and, you know, when you think of it, it's like the moon is conscious, the sun is conscious, all the planets are conscious, and it's like, and it's all, you're a microcosm of the entire universe, you yourself, right? It's the microcosm and the macrocosm, but there's even more, right? So it really is just like, how do you want to define it? You could look at the moon as a god. You could look at the sun as a god. You could look at the solar system as a god, right? You could look at the universe as a god. Okay, and then you could look at the multiverse as a god, right? Or as I like to call it, the mother of all things, right? The multiverse. But it's easiest to just focus on the one that loves you so much that you're its very favorite thing. You and everybody else and every amazing thing that's ever happened here, every horrible thing that's ever happened here, the one that loves duality, right? Because this is a world of duality. What makes this possible is the idea that there could be two. You know what I'm saying? That there can be opposites of things. The one that wants to experience the contrast of not being alone. But it's all just a big play of words. It's all just, right? Because you can't put it into words. You know, the more you fill your head with scriptures and religions and this, that, and the other, the farther away from the truth that you get. You know, if you know what you're doing, any religion can work for you. But as a very good friend of mine says, there's map readers and there's map followers, right? Like, let's take the Bible, for example. The Bible's almost definitely been highly manipulated, but you could still use it to have the experience and to know truth. Can you do it by trying to go and take you know, this psalm and that psalm and this, you know, whatever, and going to church. No, you can't. The way that you use the Bible to have the experience that allows you to know truth is to live your life as Jesus, right? Or in the case of, you know what I'm saying, it's like if you want to be a map reader, you'll never understand the truth. If you want to be a map follower, you live your life like Christ. And you play out the whole play. It's a manuscript, like a you know, like a play. It's a script, like for a movie. And you're the main character. You're the Christ. And if you go and live your life like that, you know what I'm saying? That you go and you take it step by step by step by step through all the whole story. And you play that out. This is your script. Then yes, you will realize the truth. If you sit there and just read this and that and and go about your life, go to your 9 to 5 and whatever, you won't. You know what I'm saying? You'll get nowhere with that. You'll be just another evangelist, Bible thumper, just, you know what I'm saying? Pretty much doing the opposite of what you should be doing. So, but this is the truth with all the religions. They're a map that shows you a path to realize the truth. Sam, that's enough, dude. You hear me talking? Thank you, bud. So, you know, it's the same with all of them. Same with all of them. You know what I mean? This is why I personally, like, when it comes to religious books and things like that, like, I really like Tao Te Ching because it's the shortest. It provides the most straightforward map, in my opinion. I don't think that we need 2,000 pages, you know, to get there, but you can. You can. They all provide a way there. But most people will never actually do it because they're too busy reading it and not busy enough following it. So that's what I have to say about that. Let me go back to the chat. Donna says, thank you for your words. Gonna go to sleep and listen to the full tomorrow. Well, I hope you're sleeping well. Thank you so much. Gabe Camacho, thank you for the super comment. Gabe says, God, pray for me right now. I'm having hot dog like urges, fighting with them. Please hold me, but in a straight way, and let God guide me. Well, many blessings to you, and I hope that God can guide you through that. VF, I can't say your name, but somebody says, how old were you when you lost your V card? I was 12, I think. Naoki says, do you view God as personal or impersonal? And then continues to say, do you think humans need moral guidance beyond themselves? I think that like I said, it just depends on how high you want to look up and call that God. You know what I mean? Like, the word God is not really that great. God is more of a description, and I do believe that description can be applied to more consciousnesses. Sam, there's many consciousnesses that have existed and that do exist, which could be described as gods, right? But what should you be focused on? You should be focused on that which is personal to you. If you go up high enough, it becomes less personal. But one of the great realizations is to realize that even no matter how small you are, that's one of the amazing aspects of that which you think of as God, is that the absolute total awareness that it has of all things, right? You just have to ask yourself, how high up are you trying to look and call that God, right? And as far as the second part of your question is, do you think humans need moral guidance beyond themselves? Maybe. Some do. When I think of, there's two different aspects. When you want to talk about the fastest route to realizing the truth, the fastest route to realizing the truth, right, is through virtue. It's not through prayer or any firm set of rules and doing this, not doing that, blah 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 blah. It's none of that. It's through virtue. It's embodying virtue. If you embody virtue, it doesn't matter what you call God, right? Now, what is the difference between morals and virtues, right? Virtues are positive attributes which you embody, right? The opposite of sin, right? But morals are rules and codes of conduct that you create for yourself so that you don't succumb to your own ego. You see what I'm saying? So when we know, if we are still having issues with the ego, where the ego is present, and we're trying to draw a line between our mind and our true self, right? We can create a moral code that gives us a set way that we're going to respond to any situation, any thought that arises, any situation that arises that thwarts, for lack of our ego, right? So we come up with a set of rules that allows us to act with virtue even in a situation where our ego is telling us the opposite, even in a situation where we're experiencing desire for something else. Then by setting a moral code, right, we can stop ourselves, we can keep our ego weak until we're able to get in touch with ourselves to the point that we can embody virtue, right? And so some people might not be good. Like, I remember there was a girl a long time ago that I knew that she was doing an interview for some magazine or something, and one of her questions for the interview was, what's your moral code? And so she asked me, what's a moral code? And I was like shocked. This is many years ago, before my whole special. I was like, what do you mean, what's a moral code? Like, what are you, like, I'm in my head, I'm going like, what am I even doing with this person? She doesn't know what a moral code is. And so she goes on Google and she goes, what is a moral code? She's like looking up what a moral code is on Google. And it probably wasn't right of me to like judge somebody, but at that moment I was really judging. And there are people like that they they don't have that by default. So yeah, they can benefit from moral guidance, but But it's probably a sign of like a younger soul that's not had enough rebirths yet to figure it out for themselves. But by the end, I think, by the time you've lived enough lives, I think that you probably won't need guidance beyond yourself. Noy says, what is the greatest lesson you feel you've learned so far in your life's journey? The greatest lesson that I feel that I've learned so far in my life's journey. Greatest lesson that I feel I've learned so far in my life's journey is that the scope of perception is vast. It is very difficult sometimes to understand why certain people do certain things or react certain ways to certain situations. But that's because they lived their own life, and their life was different than yours. And there are reasons why everybody is the way that they are. And so it's important to have compassion for everybody, even the people that are very frustrating and hard to understand, because something happened to them that made them the way they are. And that's a really, really, really tough lesson. And to expand on that, we have to remember that all things exist as contrast. We live in a world of duality. And yes, through meditation, we can have a non-dual experience. But all things exist as contrast to the other. Is the moment that the moment that good becomes apparent is the same moment when evil becomes apparent. You see what I'm saying? Only one shines light on the other. You cannot, the shadow exists because of the light, right? Because something is obscuring the light. But if there was no light to begin with, there would be no shadow, right? So this is true of all things. All things exist as contrast to the other. One cannot exist without the other. Man cannot exist without woman. Good cannot exist without evil. Right cannot exist without wrong. The moment that you remove one, the other one ceases to exist, or it fragments. And half of that becomes the replacement for that which was removed. Right? Let's take the good and evil idiom, for example. If all the people that consider themselves good, right, destroy all the people which we consider evil, right, does evil stop existing? No. Now suddenly the people who destroyed another people become the new evil. And the new good becomes everyone that was neutral, right? And so this is like the Trinity or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, chaotic good, chaotic evil, and chaotic neutral, right? But the path to hell is paved in good intentions, right? So all good leads to evil, right? And evil is what creates good, right? So, you know, the scope of perception. That's my greatest lesson. Mihaela says, so grateful you're sharing your journey with us and that you are in continuous equilibrium. Thank you for your gratitude. I appreciate you as well. Naoki says, I agree that personal experience is the most powerful personal conviction, but religion can influence or guide us towards pursuing the experience or recognizing our spiritual need. Can we look at you as a god? Oh, wait, no. Code Black says that. Naoki says, recognizing our spiritual need. Well, you can, but the thing is like, you have to think beyond yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, religion can be, can influence or guide someone towards pursuing that experience, right? But it can also lead another person towards doing atrocities, right? So, you know, what would be more ideal would be, you know, to create a culture that was more geared towards prioritizing that experience, you know, through compassion and meditation and so on and so forth, instead of writing a bunch of books in different languages, which are always eventually manipulated and corrupted by the people in power. You know, and relying on language, which is the weakest form of communication, to try and set forth a you know, just another way to pit, you know, and one group of people against another and so on and so forth. I mean, it's pretty difficult, to be honest, to say that what is the correct route. It really is difficult, but I think that that's kind of like the way I look at it, is like we're playing like a game, right? And when we realize God, right, when we realize oneness with everything, that's kind of like the nature of the game, right? Is how to spread that without creating evil, right? Without getting lost. And nobody has ever successfully done that. You know what I mean? So, it's a tough one. You could make an argument for it either way, but the truth is that the greatest have all failed. Jesus failed, Buddha failed, Muhammad failed, you know. They all set out to do something amazing and something good, and their heart was in the right place, and they were trying to they were trying to give people a way to realize the truth, and it always ended with horrible things happening over the course of eternity, over the long term. And even the short term in some cases. So it's a really slippery slope. It's hard to say what is the correct path there. But, you know, Jesus got tortured, and, you know, there was the Crusades and everything else, and Buddhists have been persecuted. Their own people have been massacred and killed. Obviously, there's been some violence from Islam as well. I mean, to me, I don't even know that Taoism would be considered a religion as much as a philosophy, but as far as they all go, that's the one that I see that got it the rightest. I don't know that of anything that that bad really came from that, but it's also not got as big of a following as far as I know either. So Code Black says, can we look at you as a god? Well, you could look at everybody as a god. Everybody's a fractal-lated version. Like, you truly are created in God's image. So, you know, it's a singular consciousness, but it's a multifaceted awareness. You know, in the same way that you have two eyes, and if you remove one, you no longer have depth perception. You can still see. Whether I have one eye or two eye, I can see everything in this room. But by only seeing it from a single point instead of from two separate points, I can't judge the distance. And so God is experiencing everything simultaneously, all things as one. You are truly the curator of an experience for God. Every thought in your head is a prayer. You don't get to pick and choose and say, okay, right now I'm praying, but right now I'm just thinking and fantasizing or whatever. Everything that you do, every thought that you think, every decision that you make, you are creating an experience for God, right? And you are giving contrast to all the other billions and even trillions of people that have come and gone through the course of all time of existence of man. You are adding to that. So, you know, when you create a bad experience for yourself, you're creating a bad experience for God. When you create a bad experience for another person, you're creating a bad experience for God. When you create good experiences for other people, you create good experiences for God. And it's all a zero-sum game, right? So this is why, like, karma is really important, because to realize that it's all one is to realize the proper way of being, right? Like, you can do whatever you want to do. You can make your experience as good as possible, but you can't do it at the expense of others. Because the moment that two people have a bad experience so that you could have a good experience, you created more negativity for God's experience than you created positivity. So this is why, like, every religion says the same thing about charity and going and doing stuff for others, because it understands, they all understood the truth that it is all one. Naoki says, I 100% agree. The Bible teaches that what matters most to God is having a pure heart and motives guided by his principles of love, not outward display of righteousness through religious rituals like the Pharisees, without its transformative heart. I agree with that too. Like I said, I mean, you can be, if you go and live out the life of Jesus, like you're the playing out the whole thing as if it's, you know, your script for the movie, then you can get there. You will get there. Absolutely. It's not the only way. But it is a way. But just reading the Bible and following the 10 Commandments or whatever, you know, it's not enough. You know, and it's in my opinion, and it's manipulated and outdated, that there's faster ways. And Naoki says, why do you say the Bible is highly manipulated, not the inspired word of God? Because it's just the nature of man to manipulate things like that. It's, in my opinion, ridiculous to rely on anything that has been written as truth when it comes to God. Like, you should always look to somebody that has realized the truth, even if that's yourself or, you know, whoever it is, because there's many people on this planet right now that have realized the truth. And it's ridiculous to argue with a living person that's self-realized, using words that were supposedly written 2,000 years ago when we don't even know our own history. No, Naoki, honestly, Naoki says, sorry, I hope I'm not being a nuisance. No, you're honestly a great part of this conversation. I'm happy to have you here. Jay says, are you a religious fanatic? I am not, but I do kind of take an interest in religion, because I was never interested in it before, but I had some experiences, and to be honest, I thought I was going crazy when it first happened, or I considered that I could be. And so I started looking up other instances of people that had similar experiences, and it all brought me back to different religious philosophy and whatnot. And so at some point I realized that what was happening to me was what happened to many people, and was the actual source of all religions. And so, you know, but the truth is that the person who has not experienced God, the person that has not self-realized or realized God in some way, cannot understand something like the Bible, cannot understand any of these religious texts. It's all alchemy and this, that, and the other, and it's like it requires people to blindly follow something that they don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Like, they're literally all written for people who have already done the thing which they're supposed to be guiding people towards being able to do. And so it makes more sense is to, like, yoga is beautiful because it offers you 112 different ways or something to have the experience, Taoism to me is great because it offers you one way to have the experience, which fucking definitely that anybody can do. There's nobody that's incapable of that. But like going and living your whole life, playing out Jesus's entire life to have the realization and to do it blindly because somebody told you that it was the right thing or because it was in an old book is not the most effective way. It's not the most, it's an overly complicated way. And I don't have anything against it. Like if somebody can make that happen, but what I see instead is a bunch of people that it's like, it for sure is, okay, so someone asked earlier, like why I said that it was manipulated. And it's because it says literally that it's the only way. It says that. This is the only way. Right? And that's definitely not something that any realized person like Jesus would have said if they existed, right? What they would have actually said is that the kingdom of heaven is within. Right? That's probably true. But to say that it's the way and the only way, there's 0% possibility that if Jesus existed that he said that. And that's how we know right there it loses all of its credit and has been manipulated. Jimmy Cruz says, religion is a bane for all extremists in all religions. And that's true. There's literally, I'm not saying it's a bane for all, because some people it's good for them. But overall, the path to hell is paved in good intentions. And it always goes wrong eventually. Whether it creates violence against other people or violence against the people following it, it always leads to violence. James says, be humble, respect is key. I agree. Ultimate says, what was the point? I don't know. You guys gotta keep in mind that like I am working through the chat chronologically, but sometimes I talk and the chat's still going. So when you write something, you can also be a little bit more specific to what you're responding to so that I know when I finally get to your comment and I can continue the conversation with you, just as a little secondary note. Ultimate says, that's why he said he would write it on our hearts. And that could have been said, I agree. And then someone else says, Enoch is gone. James Cooper says, yoga stretches. No, James, there's many different aspects to yoga. Asana, which is the stretches, is just one of them. And the whole point of asana is to prepare somebody to be able to sit in meditation for a long period of time. the exercise or whatever that you are familiar with that's been popularized as yoga is the least important aspect of many different things which make up yoga, but it's mostly has a lot to do with meditation and the stretches and things which most people think of as yoga is to prepare you to be able to sit perfectly comfortably for a long period of time. Ultimate Beast from Beyond says, reckon that's why he got crucified. Well, that's, kind of is a point to it. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say, yeah, I mean, there's a chapter or a line in Tao Te Ching that says, the work is done and then it's forgotten. There's another one I'm trying to think of as well, but definitely telling people that you're the way and the only way is not a good way of going about things, especially in past times. Naoki says, it was written by men, but God inspired contents like secretary writing their boss's messages for them. Jesus said at John 4:6, I am the way. Well, I'm not going, I shouldn't have to explain why this is like the New Testament was written, like 700 years or something after his death. It wasn't even written by his disciples. It was written by his disciples. And then people want to take it as the word of God. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, I honestly can't. As much as, like, I want to say something, I would like to lodge an argument or say something profound in regards to it, but, like, to be honest, from my own perspective of somebody who realized the truth simply by chanting a single syllable, it just seems ridiculous to me. Like, I can't even, like, it's like almost to the point of, like, I feel like I would be lowering myself by lodging an argument against it. As much as that probably sounds like I'm putting myself on a pedestal, I don't mean to do that. I can't argue against, it's basic logic and reasoning to know that it's not a good way of going about it. James Keller says, Bible was originally in old language, which is still has to be translated. Originally, the writers took and added a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's been through multiple translations, and somebody mentioned the Ethiopian Bible being closest to the original earlier, and I believe that probably is true. Most people in the States read what's the King James version of the Bible. I think as soon as, most of us can probably logic out that anything that is a king's version is probably not accurate. As soon as just to even say the word version kind of indicates that there's been some type of deviation from the original. The other thing too is that if you want to believe our history in America, supposedly we came here and started this country to get away from the king and his forced religion. So it's kind of seems counterintuitive to then follow the King James version of anything. So, I'm not trying to like talk down or anything like that, but it's just it's pretty incredulous. Naoki continues to say, yes, but the original message is preserved. It's been preserved from attempts to destroy it in the most translated book. It's not the most translated book, actually. Tao Te Ching is the most translated book in history. There can be a lot said. There's like a lot of chapters in the Bible, in Leviticus and so on and so forth, about obeying your masters and so on and so forth. And, they've done a good job at using it as a tool for control, but I don't think that it's the best way to have a direct experience with God. There's a saying that says, all religion was designed to protect man from a direct experience with God. But it does work for some people. If they, like I said, if people are map followers and not map readers, like, you could pretty much like throw out most of it and just, if you, like I said, live like Jesus, as described in the Gospels, you could do it like that. There's also, like, for example, there's something called Bhakti Yoga, which it's the yoga of devotion, right? Which is very similar to, when you talk about devotion, it can be very similar to the word surrender, right? And so, like, when I look at the Bible, I think of it as, a map of surrender, how to completely surrender, right? And surrender is a very powerful thing spiritually. If you, I don't know why that it works, but it does. And, the thing that I can say that's good about the Bible and about Jesus's teachings is that it teaches surrender. And if you can surrender to God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, the good thing about that is that it's something that opens your heart, right? It opens your, not everyone loves the word chakra, but it opens your heart chakra, right? And if you can open, and that should always be the first step on the spiritual path. The complaint that I have about, for example, I've talked very highly of Tao Te Ching, and there's other religions and stuff, but the good thing about Christianity is that it's smart, or that if anyone is going to teach, guide someone on the spiritual path, they should always be guiding them to open their heart first. And not all religions do that. And if you don't open your heart first, what it can do is that it can create an unbalanced awakening, where someone can become kind of a dangerous person, and it's hard to control somebody once they've awakened themselves in that way. So it's not all negative, but it's definitely not the only way, and in my opinion, it's also not the best way. Ultimate Beast says he's writing new scriptures. James Keller says King James Bible written by a king of England who also wrote Demonology. Needs and Wants says Sefer doesn't take any books out. You guys probably know more about it than I do. I'm not like I read the Bible a couple times when I was in a bad situation, long before I had any interest in spirituality. After awakening, I never really took a huge interest in it. I will probably one day read it again and maybe look deeper into it, but the truth is that it's not interesting to me, because I can see my interest in religion has been really about reverse engineering my own experience to figure out how an adult film star with a kind of dark history even beyond my career was able to achieve the thing which many religious monks and things that dedicate their entire lives to religion spend their entire lives trying to do, and many don't. So, everything that I have learned about religion and philosophy of that regard has not been really about trying to find a way to make it happen. It has been all about trying to figure out how I did make it happen in retrospect. So you have to take that into consideration, when you're talking to me about religion, because that's, again, the scope of perception is vast, right? And that's my experience. My experience has been doing everything the opposite of what most religions say is good, pretty much living a life of sin, but doing it in a virtuous manner, and was able to, realize the self through that. And so when something says, I am the way and the only way, and I know for a fact that I got there through a completely different way that didn't require that at all, I can immediately, through my own experience and perception, disregard that. You see what I'm saying? Now, that doesn't mean that it's not going to work for someone else if they're willing to follow a really difficult path. But it's not the only way. Let's see, I'm going to skip over a couple comments. Someone else says Jesus is the only way. David Rodriguez says, hello, Bruce. This is David Rodriguez again, and I'm checking in to say hello. I hope that you've been doing well lately. I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. Suka says, hell yeah. Mystic Me says, good quote. Suka says, can you how? I do how. Vizzy Wizzy says, yes, sir. PTS Demon says, surrender is acceptance, accountability, responsibility, ownership, the makings of a good leader. Yes, surrender is incredibly powerful. You know, you don't need 2,000 pages of scripture to surrender to the ebb and flow of the universe. You just, you know, this is why, like, so many philosophies, especially like Asian religion, Buddhism, things like that, Taoism, like, be like water, you know, take the path of least resistance. It's that simple. The path of least resistance, you know, that doesn't mean, you know, that you gotta, it requires, like, it's not as simple as it sounds. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean, like, doing whatever, that doesn't mean living without virtue, because all things have, every action has a reaction. You know what I'm saying? It's really best described as karma. You know what I'm saying? And so, to understand karma, to understand that every action has a reaction, right? One can then be like water, right? And that requires surrender, right? Because the more you try to influence things, the more you try to do things, again, we can look and see in so many different religions that somebody tried to do something good. Somebody tried to give people a way. They tried to give people a manual, a manuscript. But the thing is, every religion requires you to follow another person's experience. Can you follow my path? No, you can't follow my path, because you're not gonna go to prison and then get out and rebuild your life as an adult film star, and then chant the Om driving through the desert and realize enlightenment, right? I can't give you a path that you can follow, right? I could say, okay, just chant the Om. That's what worked for me, chanting the Om. I chanted the Om for 2 hours. It worked the first time, right? But that's probably not going to work for somebody that didn't have the same life experiences as what I had. You see what I'm saying? And it's the same as, you know, same as Jesus. It's the same as Buddha. It's the same as Muhammad. Like, you following another person's experiences, right? But what you got to do instead is that you have to follow your own experiences. You have to release everything. You have to unlearn everything that you've ever known. You got to, like, everything that's filling your head right now is everything that's stopping you from realizing the truth. What you instead need to do is have intense introspection. If I could give you any part of my journey and my path of how I came to realize what I came to realize that you can recreate yourself, it's going to be, as I said earlier, reverse engineering my life. Like, reverse engineer your entire life. Think, just like, come to realize everything that you've ever done that was right. Come to realize everything you've ever done that was wrong. Think about every action that you ever made and what reaction that there was to that. And think about it as an observer, a completely unbiased observer. Take absolute total accountability for every single thing that you've ever done, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And meditate. Just meditate. Fast. Clean your body. Realize that you're completely full of all kinds of weird fucking chemicals. If you have any addictions, anything that fills your mind, even if it's religion, even if it's spirituality and you're obsessing over it, that obsession over that constant thing, that's gonna be a block for you. Try to become nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, remove everything that you think of as yourself. That's the fastest way. You know what I'm saying? Because everything that you think of as yourself, everything that you think of as you are, your name, your job, your likes, your dislikes, your religion, your sciences, you know what I'm saying, your body, none of that is you. You know what I'm saying? That's all ego, right? And when you realize that you're the one that observes all that, right? Then when you realize that you existed before this body and that you will still exist after this body, when you realize that this life is just one of many, 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 many countless lives, right? When you realize that when you look at another person, that you're not looking at another person, that you're looking at yourself in the same way that your hand is not your eye, but your eye can see your hand. But can your eye move your hand? No, your eye cannot move your hand. If you believe science, your brain moves your hand, right? So your brain is then the observer, right? Is your eye the observer, or is it the tool of your observation? The eye is then transmitting to your brain. So does your brain see or does your eye see? Which one moves your hand? Is your hand separate from your eye, or are they both part of your body, right? This is the truth of all of humanity, right? It's all part of the body of God. And you're part of that, right? But you got to decide, what part are you? You know what I'm saying? Are you the pinky toe? Are you the ankle? Are you the foot? Are you the hand? Are you the tongue, the voice? Are you the eyes? Are you a brain cell? Like, what are you? What part of God are you? Are you a fucking tumor? Cancer? Like, that needs to be removed to make it better? Or are you like, you know, something really cool, like, you know, the part that makes it so you can smell, that you could taste, that you can feel, that you can touch? Are you the heart? Do you love? Like, what part of God are you going to be? You know what I'm saying? You can be a good part, you can be a bad part. Don't be the asshole. You know what I mean? Yoki says they may be neck and neck. James Culver says heart and mind. James PTSG says James and the loins, we all have three brains. PTS Demon continues to say religion is another form of government. There is only one truth. It goes back to Egypt. That's why all religions are similar. Genesis, genealogy, and Mother Isis. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Look, I don't like to bite on, you know, history and stuff like that, but I agree with PTS Demon in the sense that I do think basically all religions have been rebrands from the Egyptian religion. And you can definitely see some like strong parallels in basically all of them. They've all been kind of rebranded and given to people in a different way, but they've all been changed and this, that, and the other as tools for control, so on and so forth. And, you know, in my own experiences, which have been many, at some point you look up high enough and you find the mother of all things, you know. So I'm not saying that that it stops there. I don't know, but that's as high as I've personally seen myself. So thank you, PTS Demon. Sam, no, dude. Sam's barking at June bugs. James Colbert says Sumerians. PTS Demon says syncretism taught by Santos Bonacci is a great resource. I'll definitely probably look into that. Let me screenshot that. PTSD says, exactly. Some call it tacky, I call it tactical. What doesn't work for you works for me. Naoki says, but which philosophies produce fruits? Historically, the Bible had vastly larger impact on society and cultures worldwide, begs the question, why so? But the thing is that it had a negative impact. You're right, it did have a big impact, but it had probably, it's one of the most negative impacts. And as somebody who has gone around all over the world, all over the United States, talks to people all over the place, that has people listening and talking to me about religion and stuff all the time, that is completely immersed in all this, right? What I see mostly is a bunch of evangelists and zealots that have no clue what they're talking about, that have never realized the truth. They have not had any kind of direct experience with God. There is a few, somehow I know at least one guy that realized, that had at least some level of realization, you know, through, he was a Mormon originally, but strangely enough, he was also followed Buddhism for a while, and then after his realization reverted back to the Bible, because that's what he was originally trained on, you know. And when I ask him why would you go back to it if you made the realization? He just studies Qigong and Tai Chi, and does Tai Chi and all this stuff, and did Buddhism, realized, and then went back to it, right? Because that was what he was trained on when he was a kid as a Mormon, right? And when I ask him why, he says, because it feels right. You see what I'm saying? But the thing is that there's so many, like if you go to India, there's so many people that have realized the self, right? Through yoga and things. And they don't try to force that on anybody else. They know that it's a gift, right? They don't try to tell nobody else that they're wrong, right? They know the truth, you know. So this is my issue with like Christianity, is that it actually doesn't work for most people. It has had the hugest impact, one of the hugest impacts on society, but it's been a negative impact. It's stopped more people from realizing the truth than it's helped, in my opinion, my humble opinion. PTS Demon says, that's easy. I believe in myself, and pacing my own way isn't easy. I'm surprised I'm where I'm at. I've dealt with my trauma and reclaimed my soul. Follow your heart. It's that simple. And that's true. I do believe that, like, mankind, you know, I used to think the opposite, but honestly, I do believe that mankind is inherently good. There's a seed of good within us. Even people doing evil think that they're doing good most of the time. Very few people are doing evil because they want to do evil. Most of them think that they're doing something good. You know, and this is, as we said, there really is no good and evil. It all exists as a lesson, right? And the lesson can be for you if you realize yourself as part of God. But the truth is that all these lessons are lessons for God. You know what I'm saying? The suffering of man, of samsara, that we're experiencing is the suffering of God, right? And so, you know, but when we say God, again, it all depends on how high up do you want to look. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to look up as our creator, as that which we are part of, as God, which I think most religions do, that makes sense. I don't see anything necessarily wrong with that. But it does go up higher than that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a source, you know what I'm saying, a mother of all things beyond that. And what, if indeed there could possibly be anything beyond that, I don't know. It's beyond my vision. But, you know. Naoki continues and says, by fruits, I mean love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, forgiveness, self-control, compassion, selflessness, service. And those are all good things. And I can't, those are all, that's all virtue. That's all virtue. And that's beautiful. But how many people do you really know that have realized those virtues by reading the Bible and by going to church or anything like that? How many people do you know that realize those? And how many people do you know that have resisted the opposites of those? Right? The 7 deadly sins. How many of those people do you know? Right? And if you want to dive into some different theologies and whatnot, you'll also realize that all the things that you just listed, all those virtues you just listed, they all have opposites, and all those also correlate with the 7 chakras, right? Because one cannot, each one cannot exist in the presence of its opposite. So the 7 sins and the 7 virtues are literally like the dial on the 7 chakras, right? Like you cannot be greedy if you're being giving, right? You cannot be sorry, I've been talking too much, but you can do your own research or you can figure it out yourself. You know what I'm saying. Like you cannot be lustful if you're being chaste, right? You cannot be forgiving if you're being wrathful, right? So on and so forth. TJZ says, I subbed to you because I was doom scrolling and got caught up. I love this stuff. That's great. I'm happy that you came here. You've been a great addition to our thing. I'm happy you subbed. Thank you for the gift as well. Let's see. PTS Demon says, Bible, basic instructions before leaving Earth. That's learn how to be alone. I mean, that can be it. This says, Arnav says, just join the live. How are you, sir? Good to see you, Arnav. Thank you for joining. It's been a good stream, I think. It's definitely keeping me on my toes. For being on day 3 with no coffee, I'm having to keep my wits about me. Jason RD says, just a question. I try to remove everything and forget everything, but I find my mind always goes back to where I am in the preset. Do you have any tips? You know, I could give you a couple tips. One is don't try. Just like let it happen. Because, you know, it's like in the same, you know, the saying is like, if you chase a butterfly, it runs away. But if you tend your garden, it'll attract many, right? You know, if you try to stop yourself from thinking something, obviously the first thing that you're going to think about is that, right? It's the same, you know, it's the law of attraction. You pull something towards yourself and it goes away. You pull it away from yourself and it goes towards you, right? Or the law of reversion, or everything is mean reverting, right? But an interesting trick, which works for me, maybe it'll work for you, I don't know, is that try to predict what you're going to think next. You know what I'm saying? Like your mind will continue, always wants to go, whether you want it to or not. That's how you know it's not you, right? But the moment that you try to predict where it's going to go, you say, okay, but what next? You don't know. You don't know where it's going to go next. So that's a good trick. you know. But the other advice that I would give is patience. Give it more time. Whatever your practice is in meditation, or you're chanting, or you're in silence, or you're witnessing your thoughts, or you're witnessing the breath, or you're immersing yourself in sound, or whatever your chosen method is, right, of immersion, your single pointed focus is on whatever it is. Do it longer. Try to have patience. Build yourself up. Like if you can just even sit in one position, any position, it can be a normal ass position, sitting in a chair. It doesn't have to be lotus position. It doesn't have to be whatever. It would be great if it was. So actually, if you can fixing your hips is like a big part of the spiritual process. If you can fix your hips to the point that that's the most comfortable position for you, it's a great position because you really want your spine to be stacked when you're meditating. But if you can just find any position, especially and very importantly with your spine straight, where your spine is totally straight, that you're so fucking comfortable in that you could sit there for like 6, 7, 8 hours, something like that. Something's gonna happen for you. You know what I'm saying? This is just an example. But whatever you're gonna do, like if you're chanting, if that's part of your thing, do it longer if it hasn't worked for you. You know what I'm saying? If you're trying to witness your thoughts and they keep going back to that, do it longer. Wear yourself out. Wear your ego out. You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't say yourself. Wear that, what you think is yourself, out. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's an endurance game. Sometimes it's just, and then the other thing is fasting. Realize that your ego is a non-essential personnel, to steal a little something from the event back in 2020. If you stop eating and you go into a deeply fasted state, which might take 4 or 5 days if you're drinking water, or it could be as fast as 30 or 40 hours if you're doing a dry fast. I'm not a medical professional, nothing I say is intended as health advice. But what you'll realize is that when you become really fasted, one of the first things that your body lets go of is the ego. Is that little yap going on in your head. So those are the best tips. Try to predict what you're going to think of next. If that doesn't work, you want to take it, try it longer, stay persistent, just keep witnessing it, let them come, let it go. And if you really want to be serious about it, fast. PTSD says fear is an illusion. You choose to be scared. Yes, staring down a lion is terrifying. The thing is, you're better off staying rather than faking out. Well, the thing is that everything is an illusion, right? This entire life is an illusion. People are so convinced that they need to hold on to this life, and not to say that anyone should throw their life away because you were given this life. You should be grateful for it. And you should absolutely make the most of it. But you should also realize that this isn't your only life. That you do respawn, right? But, this is why it's like the best type of yoga is karma yoga, right? Which is also, too, something that is very similar to a lot of things within the Bible and so on and so forth, or other religions as well. Like, if you're confident that you're a good person, or that you've been improving, doing as much as possible for other people, and that you're trying to be a good, as virtuous of a person as possible, then you can be confident that your next life will be better than this one, that the lessons that you will need to face in the next life will be, you know, different, right? But if your lessons in this life is that you got to stare down a lion because in your last life that you were scared of everything or something, and you have to realize that, realize something through, you know, through that, then you accept it, you surrender to, you know what I'm saying? You don't try to fight it. Let me see if I can, I'm about to run out of batteries, guys. Let me see my cord will reach. Oh, not quite. Let me recalibrate here. 1 second. But yeah, fear is an illusion, but so is everything else. There we go. Got it. But this is why, like, you know, staring down a lion and accepting your fate, that's going to take you to that realization faster than all the scriptures in the world. You know, I've interviewed a lot of people that were spiritually awakened, and they all have something similar in common, is that there was a moment when they just gave up. Not in a bad way, but they just said, you know what, like, what is going to be will be. And, second, let me get this shadow off my face. And it's a really common thing. Some people were losing someone that they love. Some people were sick and going through health crisis. Some people were, you know, going through losing everything. Some people were going through losing a marriage or a relationship or their children, and to the point that they truly wanted it to be over. But it's always, every single time, it always happens in a state of surrender. You know? And so that part's right. But to say that you should surrender to this person that lived 2,000 years ago, and that that's the way and the only way, and that you have to follow this set of rules and so on and so forth to do it, and completely ignore your own experiences and so on and so forth, that's manipulation. It can work, but, you know, it goes deeper than that, you know. If you really want to get into the esoterics and the weird stuff, like, you know, these old school these big old cathedrals and things and so on and so forth, like, a lot of them have, like, really high-end technology, like, built into them, you know, with the shape of the walls and the organs that are playing the vibrations that are going through everything at a certain octaves and frequencies, and, you know, the paintings on the walls and certain patterns, and the stained glass and so on and so forth. You know, it's all kind of designed for you to have an experience, which, and then for you to make the logical deduction that that is the reason why, when the real reason why is much deeper than that, right? But so there's quite a lot of manipulation on levels that is really, really difficult to understand when it comes to religions and things. It doesn't mean that it's all bad, but it does mean that there's more to it than most people realize. Scott Williams says, you mean Sumerian? I don't really know. Like, to be honest, is all, like I said, my process has all been about reverse engineering my own experience, and that has it initially brought me to, you know, yoga and a lot of things, aspects of that, and it also has made me really interested in Taoism, because one thing that I have consistently done throughout my entire life is that I have not listened to anyone else. I've always followed my own way, and that got me there. So, you know, my personal way is most closely mirrored in Taoism and yoga. And my realizations have been also very much, there's some echoes of Hinduism as well. I don't, some of the, but I think that that's like such a huge, that's like an ocean of information. So I also don't consider it to be as acute as I would like my philosophy to be. PDSN says, news, north, south, east, west, cardinal directions, broad, wide coaster, telling us with visuals what to think. Yeah, they're manipulating us on many, many levels. Johnny, good to see you. PDSN says, God created man in his image. Jesus is made of both man and God. People don't get it. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But this is the thing is, when that stuff was written, like, as far as I could see, is like, it's all alchemy. You know what I mean? Like, all these old texts are alchemy. They're not actually meant to be understood by the common man. It's very clever. It's written in a way that is good enough for the enlightened. The enlightened person can understand any religion, every religion, and see the truth in it, right? And they can also use it as a way to walk deeper down that, into higher states of enlightenment, right? But for most, not all, but for most of them, for the common person that is not reached any stage of realization, they're tools of subjugation. It subjugates the same teaching that subjugates the layman makes the monk, you know what I'm saying, enlightened, because he's already had some level of realization, right? And so it's very, very, very clever, but it's because it's created by people that know things which are intensely hidden. It's esoteric in nature, you know what I'm saying? And it's esoteric for a reason, because, you know, as I said before, like, it's not good if somebody awakens through a different chakra than the heart. You know, you need to awaken through the heart. And so, while all the different, you know, alchemy is in there, it's not obvious to anyone that hasn't already opened the heart. Once the heart is open, suddenly you see the other paths, and you're like, okay, all of a sudden, you know, it's like that meme with all the, from Limitless, you know what I mean, with all the math starts coming out of the person's head. It's like that, but if you haven't taken the limitless pill, you can't understand it. You know what I mean? And people get so turned up with trying to thump on that book, trying to push it on other people, say this is the way, the only way, this is the word of God, that they are missing the whole point. They're not getting to the point of opening their heart and being able to actually understand what is written. I didn't see who did that, but thank you to whoever just sent the gift, by the way. You see what I'm saying? So it's thing, and then the other thing is, like, when they start trying to tell you, like, oh, everything else is, it's all black magic, it's all demons, it's all false light. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's it becomes obvious that it's designed to keep you down, not to bring you up. You know, I shouldn't say that it's designed, but that it's been manipulated, and that's what it ends up doing. That's what it's become a tool of. It's something that it might have been different. It's hard to say what it really is, and I'm not enough of an expert on it to say what it is, but I can. Or what it was originally, you know. I can't read, I don't even speak any of the languages that it was originally written in. But it seems like somewhat of a fool's errand to follow anything that is the word of somebody who can't change their words. Somebody that's gone, that's not there to defend or deny or to change or to elaborate or to clarify. When we have literally people all across this world that have awakened. You know what I'm saying? There are enlightened beings on this planet right now. Why would we follow anything else? Why would we say that anything that's ever been written that people refuse to change, that people say that it's some type of sacrilege to change or to challenge or to say anything else, and that nobody can, whatever, that this is the law and the only law and this will never change. It can't be defended, it can't be elaborated on, it can't be updated, it can't, like, that's it. It was written, it's done. Thousands of years ago. It'll make no sense. Just people enlightened right now. You know what I'm saying? And the truth is that the most enlightened people, they don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, they come to the conclusion that, like Lao Tzu came to. You know what I'm saying? When the work is done, it's forgotten. You know what I mean? Like, you don't take it to the point that the people want to go nail you on a cross. You teach somebody to teach somebody, and then you step away. You know, it's common sense, but you know, people, they'll defend a book to the bitter end. You know what I mean? And they'll say this is the word of God, but let me tell you, straight up, this is facts. God doesn't use words. God speaks to you in ways that is like, to call it a vision, even to say that God will give you a vision is not even beginning to describe the way that God speaks to you. God will speak to you through senses you didn't even know that you had. Every sense that you knew you had, and 10 other ones you didn't even know you had. Through your emotions even. You will feel it in a way that is absolutely undeniable. Like, if you've ever seen, the best way that I could describe it, better than, you want to know what's funny? Better than anything that's ever been written in any book, any of the famous religious books, better than any of those. You know who depicts the word of God better than any of them? fucking Marvel, yeah, the comic book creators, in the scene with in Doctor Strange, when like the monk chick, like blasts him out of his body, and he's like, I don't believe nothing, and she's like, and he like, his soul comes out of his body, and then he fucking goes falling through dimension after dimension, multiverse, all that. That depiction is the best depiction I've ever seen of anything, any book, any visual thing, of anything, the best depiction of the Word of God. Because that's how God talks to you, literally like that. But that's not even really that accurate. It does a good job of showing you, but imagine that as the first person perspective of being Doctor Strange, getting blasted through, you know, universe after universe, and all the emotions and feelings and sensations and everything else that would go with that. That's how God speaks to you. God doesn't speak to you through a book and writing and scriptures and psalms. You know what I'm saying? It's not. God speaks to you through experiences that are best described by Marvel. Anyways, PTS Demon says, scrying is the ancient divination practice of gazing into reflective surfaces such as crystal balls, black mirrors, water, or flames to induce a trance-like state, enabling the practitioner to receive visions, insights, or symbolic messages. Yeah, and you can also just do it you can do it through chanting, you can do it through just sitting in silence, you can do it like, I forgot what it's called, I think it's called the Bhairava Tantra, or Vajrayagani Bhairav Tantra. I'm saying that wrong, I'm not going to get it right, but it's basically like, there's a script of a tantra where Shiva gives Shakti 112 different methods of meditation. And that's probably like the best thing I've ever read regarding techniques for meditation to realize the self. I know I didn't say that right, but you could probably just Google 112 meditation techniques of Shiva or something like that, and it'll pull it up. Adrian says, you're another one, Kulelis, the self, how self-centered. Well, you know, Adrian, you should keep in consideration that you just showed up in like the middle of the stream, and go back and watch the whole thing from the start. Morty Timers Nerd says, Krishna Murti died for your sins. PTS Demon says, black boxes everywhere. Humans love boxes. Cube is a platonic solid for matter. Mark of the beast is 666. We are carbon life. Carbon has an atomic weight of 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, 6 protons. Boxes up, boxes down, right, left, forward, backwards, box, 3D boxes, step outside of the box to see yourself in the box, 4D hypercubes, super boxes, 5D, timeless in space, welcome to the Great Awakening, yo. Well said. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. And it is like that. You know, it's one of the interesting things is, you know, when you look around, this all looks really real, right? But when you see what is actually real, and then you come back and you look at this, world, you can still see beauty in it. It's still really cool, but you'll realize like the graphics aren't that good. This whole 3D, 4D thing, it's like Mario Brothers, 64 or something, and we're on like PlayStation 5, it's like if you're back in the 90s and you're playing Nintendo 64 or whatever, you think that it's pretty cool. You're like, wow, this is a hell of an upgrade. This is awesome. But, now that we've got, AI rendering and all this new stuff, and you go and play that game, you're like, damn, this shit's ghetto. Right? And it's like that, dimensionally as well. Naoki says, history's worst acts done in the name of Christianity actually conflict sharply with those teachings. Failures reveal humans follow Christ, sadly drawing people away from God. Well, yeah, I mean, you could think about, like, for example, Europe, right? Like, Europe used to have religions that were, like the pagan religion was a lot more like basically all the other religions. And then they came through and they killed everybody and destroyed all their teachings and killed their holy people and killed their burned their books and so on and so forth, and they gave them instead this book that says basically how to be a good slave. So it's pretty interesting that teaching that's all about love and compassion and turn the other cheek and this and the other had to have so much violence to bring it to the world. It's almost kind of like the most truest thing that was ever said was the path to hell is paved in good intentions, right? PTS Steven says, no, religion, not just Christianity. You ever hear of radical Islam? Yeah, I mean, we could do it. We could pretty much do it for all kinds of religions, but right now we just roll with what we got. And right now we got someone is talking about the Bible, and so that's what we're talking about right now. But the truth is bad things happen when we rely on unchangeable written word as our moral guidebook, and that we say anyone else is wrong or that our way is the only way, when there's clearly many ways to realize the truth. But to somebody that's completely and totally indoctrinated by those teachings and that have been told that they're going to go to hell if they don't listen to it and this, that, and the other, it's really hard to say that to them. Do you know what I'm saying? They're not likely to listen. David Rodriguez says, Within You, Without You is a song that was created and released by the Beatles back in 1960s. That song is special to me because it conveys the same message that you try to convey to us. That's interesting as well, that you should say that. I'd never heard the song, but, the Beatles recorded with Prabhupada as well. Who is the founder of the ISKCON movement, which is, the International Krishna Consciousness thing. And I went to a temple one time, to a Krishna Consciousness temple. It's an interesting story where some random lady on the side of the road with a cat in Malibu took me to this, asked me for a ride, and then took me to this temple, and I went and to this whole thing that was honoring his, I think it was his birthday, and 2 days later, I had one of my most profound spiritual experiences of my life, right? And it wasn't until like much later, I had this little pamphlet that they had given me from when I went there, that, you know, had the guy's mural, and it had like a quote from Bhagavad Gita on there. And I didn't realize for at least a year, but I had that thing with me for, I don't know, a year and a half or something. I carried around with me that little pamphlet thing. And I didn't realize much later that Prabhupada died on my birthday exactly 8 years before I was born. But yeah, he recorded with the Beatles, and it's kind of an interesting parallel there as well. Oh, here we go. We got one. Muhammad says, there's no God except Allah, and Muhammad is messenger of Allah. PDS Demon says, Jesus rules. Muhammad Ali says, Jesus was also just messenger of God. And Muhammad says, Bible got changed many times by priests. That's what we've been saying. And then PTSD says to Muhammad, see, all religions are basically the same. One truth sculpted around one man's greed. Daniel says, quest for fire. Oh, it's a caveman comment. So it's not as original as he probably thinks that it is. PTS Demon says, dude, medically retired from the army after they botched my hip surgery. You're not even kidding. I appreciate you. I get excited about this stuff. Jason RD says, thank you, brother. Predict where my mind will go next. Be patient. Single point of focus and do it longer. Wear your ego out. Fasting. Sorry, just writing this here to screenshot it. I'm glad I could help, my friend. Let's see. Peter Steven says, we are trained easy more than needed. The ego is a great tool and fierce opposition. That's true. It can be a, you know, I think of the ego as a demon, but, you know, it's a demon that you have to master. You know what I mean? Like, Kai Bradley says, how could I respond? Well, it's not really that you are going to respond. It's that God is responding billions of times over again. Or should we say trillions even, however many times. Who really knows? You know what I mean? Our entire history that they tell us is fake. So it's hard to say. But one of the interesting properties of God is the ability to exist in multiple places simultaneously. So, yeah, there's that. But Kyle Bradley says, let's see, PTS Demon says, with the scrying, I meant to say, our cell phones are black mirrors, magic spellcasting is real. I would say yes, I agree with that. Kyle Bradley says, if I'm just if I'm just the product of my brain, and if my consciousness is somehow separate from my brain, then why can't I remember my past lives? I don't know why you can't remember your past lives, but I've remembered hundreds of my past lives, Kyle. So I suppose that the reason why you can't remember your past lives is because you're too focused on this path, on this life, to realize that there's more going on than your current experience. Lawrence Mayer says, trim your eyebrows. Jason RD says, I'm so sorry, just anywhere question. I guess I'm just looking for some type of hope. I lost a lot in my life. Do you have any recommendation, any type of crystals or amulets, or are they scams? I mean, I don't know if they're scams. I definitely don't have any recommendations in that regard. I would say that definitely I would recommend fasting. I would recommend meditation. I would recommend learning the 7 deadly sins and the 7 godly virtues and the 7 chakras, and self-assessing where your energy is focused currently and trying to raise that up higher. As far as like crystals and all that stuff goes, I mean, people believe in it. I don't necessarily not believe in it, but it's definitely not the direction that I would, it's definitely not something I would probably focus on. I think that maybe at some point that if you have some type of deeper realization, or you find yourself to be gifted in some way, psychically or spiritually or something, that the answer regarding crystals and amulets and things can come to you naturally, but that's not something that I think that you need to focus on or learn from anybody else. I think that that's, you know, talismans in general are highly personal. So I don't know that I would focus on that. I can't directly say that they're scams or anything, but some of them definitely probably are. But I mean, if you've ever, they used to have a toy when we were kids where you would wrap a crystal in a piece of copper wire and use it to make your own radio, right? So I think that we know that there is some truth to the whole crystal thing. But again, I think that it's something for people that are already gifted psychically as a way to enhance their natural abilities rather than trying to fix anything within their own life. You know, there's a saying, a Taoist saying, that in the pursuit of knowledge, every day, something is added on. But in the pursuit of enlightenment, every day something is removed. And so my best advice is to try to unlearn everything you've ever known and start over and surrender. Naoki says, surrender to the living God. Yeah, I would say that too. PTSD says, God, 1 created man, or -1 created man, +1 in his image. Jesus, is created of both man and God. Man carries the cross. Jesus rests on the cross. 2 dimensions, Jesus was nailed to the cross. This makes 3 dimensions, uni of duality. It creates the Holy Trinity. Religion is another form of government. All religions are similar because they derive from the same truth. And though this is off topic, I would also, I would agree with that, but I would also go make another reminder that for the people out there that aren't into religion, that science, that while religion is another form of government, science is another form of religion. So it's an interesting situation where they kind of have everybody enslaved by something, right? How long has this been? 180 minutes. Damn, this one's going long. Okay, we're down to 7 people. Let me see how much more. Oh my gosh, there's so much more chat. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna read the rest of the chat, and I'm gonna like, um, 1 second. God using us as meat suits, pretty much, yeah. I'll definitely listen to Within You, Without You by the Beatles. You guys, um, Jason said, unlearn everything and start over, surrender, brother. Again, thank you. You're welcome. PTS Demon, thank you a lot for your input. It's been great. I don't mean to skip over the rest of your comments, but I'm just kind of worn out at this point. Miniuta says, I had a crush on you since I was in high school. I'm 28 now, by the way. Well, happy that you found me here. Adrian says, don't forget the rest of us who are angels, prophets, and saints. I would never. Morty Timer says, Bob Dylan is God. Okay, you guys, I would love to continue. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. I'm tired. This was a long one. It's been 3 hours. Thank you, everybody, for the gifts. I appreciate you very much. Thank you, everybody who participated in the conversation. I love you all. I hope that we can all agree to disagree, or in some cases we can agree to agree, and understand, for the people that weren't here for the entire conversation, I want to leave off with one of my favorite questions of the day, of what was the deepest lesson that you've learned in life, and to which I want to remind everyone that that is the scope of perception, and that we all are operating through our own experiences, and that it is impossible for most people to truly grasp the scope of perception, because they cannot see through another person's eyes. Now, through spiritual realization, it actually is possible to see through other people's eyes, and this is the way that one can actually realize true empathy. But that can only be done through the realization of oneness with not only God, but with all things, being that your fellow man, woman, nature, and the cosmos, etc. So I hope that everybody takes it all with a grain of salt and nobody was offended. And thank you, everybody who was part of the conversation, and I will be back online tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time. All right? Much love, everybody. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell.